This podcast contains serious content served with a dollop of humor.
Play, think, listen, learn. Play,
The
think,
plan you're
listen,
looking for is here.
listen, learn. Play,
One moment, let me get my
listen,
phone set.
learn, play,
I'm feeling
listen,
good.
play,
Hi,
listen,
we're here and we're a little
play,
weird.
think,
Can
listen,
I just say how
learn,
happy that
play,
makes my heart?
Think, listen, learn.
Welcome to episode 4 of this Child Care Resources Provider Support podcast series brought to you by the Couch Coaching Quintet. From caricature left to caricature right. I'm Mike.
I'm Adrienne.
I'm Marie.
Hi, I'm Viv.
And this is Chris.
Okay, our topic today is media exposure and use. And everybody you know has a smart device in one form or the other. Cell phones, TVs, tablets, and such. What are some of the pros and cons that you've seen in your personal or professional life pertaining to these devices? How have they helped or hindered in situations?
I have a big pro. We have an international family. And so having video calling be kind of the norm, especially with COVID, it's so nice. Just this weekend, we were watching some international football and we were able to call Nana in England and simultaneously be here in Washington State watching the same match, and the kids are able to talk to her in real life time. And it's just so lovely that even though she lives on the other side of the planet, we can have daily communication with her. And that wouldn't be possible without things like video calls and smartphones. So that's a huge blessing. But there's also the other thing is, because they are so common, I feel like in our house, we probably have more smart devices than humans. So there's a lot of isolation, and this person is able to, and that maybe is good sometimes, but not all the time. So it's like, okay, yeah, if you want to do your thing, you can. If you want to do your thing, you can. But then there's how do we balance it? So to me, it's a con because I look out and I see all 5 of us in the living room, but we all are tunnel vision in our own personal device doing our own thing. And it's like, we're right there in the same room together, but we're not together. We're not connecting. It's like we're in the space, but there's not that bond happening. And so to me, that's a big con, is you can be literally rubbing elbows with someone and not even aware of what they're doing or who they are as a person.
I love them for connecting with others, but yeah, and you can also, or be able to look up information right away, without having to like break out the computer. Like that is, I do enjoy that, especially because oftentimes I'm not going to remember. By the time I get to the computer, it's like, I don't remember what I wanted. I remember that I wanted to look something up. I don't always remember what I wanted to look up. And so it's a nice feature, but yeah, you could also end up going down rabbit holes. And I think that's the con of like too much information or information overload. I remember when I joined like Pinterest, and that was like a deep, like I could go for hours, like pinning and oh, look at that sparkly thing over there. And, and then you'd be like, oh my God, I've been sitting here for hours doing this. And that happens not just with that, but, other apps and social media. And so, yeah, it can be a time suck, but it's also useful.
Something I think about when I feel like it's great to have a smartphone or some kind of smart device with you is, remember when you wanted to, well, at least for me growing up, if you wanted directions to drive somewhere, you had to print out them off of MapQuest, right? And prior to MapQuest, you had the big old map that was like,
Thomas
4 by 4.
Thomas Guide.
So, and you had to like turn the thing to figure out the orientation, and you're like, which way am I actually facing?
And you're still driving, right?
And you're still driving, right? So to be able to have something like that is great now, because now you can be anywhere and be like, all right, now I feel like going to Hoquiam. How do I get there from here? And you're able to just punch it in and you get the directions, and it even tells you, hey, don't go this way because there's a lot of traffic, or better yet, there's a cop right around the corner. So
I
slow
do
down.
love that speed trap.
Yeah.
So that's
my favorite.
that's there. And then also thinking about as a con, though, obviously, instant gratification is good, but instant gratification can also be bad. And in my case, I like to do a lot of like electronic shopping and things of that sort. And, so it's very easy for me to see something that I like, look it up, look at the reviews, and buy it within 7 minutes of me finding it. And that's not always good, right? So that's a con. I hate how Amazon, they have the add to cart, but they also have the buy now feature, right? It's like, yeah, see, there you go. Marie's got her little Amazon package that, I mean, Prime is not out there in Oakham yet, I don't assume, but, being able to just skip the add to cart and just buy now is bad news for me.
One click buy.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So that's
And
it
COVID
for
made
me.
it worse. COVID made it worse for me.
Amazon made a killing.
Amazon made so much money off of me. I'm telling you guys, like I live in an isolated small community anyway. So we don't have any stores, we have to drive like an hour to Olympia to get like anything most days. So it's like Amazon Prime, everything. And then like you guys have mentioned, it's kind of that vortex of like, oh, I can have it in 2 days. Okay. And the instant gratification add to cart it's bad.
It's bad.
Well, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, or that time when you accidentally buy your cart and you just put stuff there to hold it, but then it's like, oh, I didn't mean to buy this. I just wanted to save it.
Well, let me tell you that a pro for me on having a device has saved me stress, anxiety, and probably a heart attack, especially when I'm in a car with somebody I really, really get really antsy-pantsy when they're driving. So I'd rather just stick my nose into my phone and say save that way than have a heart failure. So that's a pro for me. A con is, okay. Go to the restaurant and why do people go to the restaurant and sit there and put their heads into their phone? I mean, isn't that supposed to be a place where we can kind of have conversation? And now that we can go back to restaurants, and then there's the phone. So it's really kind of odd.
Yeah, and then you see the people at the restaurant and like their toddler or like the 3-year-old, and the only way to keep them content is to have the phone out and have them watch while they're munching down on French fries. And yeah, I think that's also a big con. Something we'll probably get into a little later, but yeah, that's something else.
And the restaurants that have them, there's certain restaurants that come with a tablet on the table, and it's like you can order off the tablet. Oh, okay, and you can pay, but then they also have like the at table games that are geared for children. So it's like, oh, you forgot your phone, tablet, whatever at home. Don't you worry, because we have one on your table. And it's like, so even for our family, we have a strict no phones at the table in our home. And if we go to a restaurant, they stay in the car. So there's not even a temptation. And then you walk into the store and they're like, welcome to insert chain store here. Here's your tablet. And it's like, I just had a lecture for 15 minutes with my children about how we're not doing electronics. And this meaning well server is like, here's a tablet, little kid. And I'm like, oh, like no tablets at the table.
And Maria, I think that provides a nice segue for us, because there's something I'd like to ask our panelists. Nowadays, young children are exposed to a wide range of smart devices, whether you like it or not. And the usage of smart devices is rapidly increasing worldwide. In fact, we have something on the order of between 25 and 50 billion smart devices worldwide, meaning that we have multiple smart devices for every living and quite a few dead human beings. Although the use of smart devices by young children has not been studied in detail yet, because smart devices are relatively recent, pediatricians are warning that heavy exposure to digital media promotes all sorts of bad outcomes: less sleep, obesity, delays in learning, behavior problems. As coaches, how do you further examine these risks with providers?
I feel like it's really important to have conversations about what are your routines, what are those materials that you have available, so we can kind of balance out how often are children having that sitting and still time. So if it's your practice that we sit down and eat lunch, and then we sit down and maybe that's our media time. So it's like we have lunch and then we get to watch a cartoon, and meaning well, like that is a calming activity. Our bodies are kind of calming down, and then we go to nap. But that might not work for every child. If I just sat for a half an hour and ate, and then I sat for a half an hour and watched, the program, me as a child, like I would have been like, all right, I just sat for an hour. I'm not going to go take a 2-hour nap. I'm ready to like run around and play again. And so I think if we have people that are expressing some of those concerns, like, hey, nap time is real rough for us. Like, why aren't these children sleeping? Or if parents are saying, I don't know what it is, 9:30 at night. And, my son, he's still wide awake, pinging around the house. Evaluate, what did the day look like? How much time did we stay in that stillness? Our brains are moving and our eyes are rapidly bouncing around the screen, but the other 99% of our body is stuck in stillness. So it's not going to be it's going to be what, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And our body's still going to be wide awake because we haven't burned off any energy.
Yeah. I used to be just absolutely opposed to any technology in the classroom, but it also has its place at times. Like if it's, I think of like if a teacher is studying something with the kids and like whales, like orca whales, and maybe they bring up like a video of orca whales in the San Juan, maybe it's from the Friday Harbor Whale Museum, and they're taking a look at that, but it's intentional and it's tied to education and learning and exploring, then I'm okay with it. Oftentimes we've talked about like media and technology in terms of like watching TV, like having the cartoons on was a big issue, or showing movies. When I was still a director, that was the focus, and getting away from like showing movies, having the TV on. But now with that prevalence of not just smartphones, but tablets, and tablets made specifically for kids, like, and kids of all ages, like the leapfrogs, and even like Etch-a-Sketch type have gone electronic. It's looking at all of those combined, even when the adult is on their phone, how much are the kids kind of looking over each other's, looking over the shoulder. Listening stations are often now on like a phone type device, or, what was formerly known as an MP3 for those of us way back in the day. But I really try to focus when I'm working with providers on being intentional and know why you're doing it.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's the intentionality and not using it as like a time killer or a distraction, like you said. And really, screen time shouldn't be unattended, right? Like you said, if you're watching it, there should be some learning going on. Well, how do you guys feel about like putting on like a 30-minute episode of Bill Nye? Like, where would you put that? Like, is that something that you'd be like, oh, it's science and there's a lot of learning going on, I would be okay with my child watching this?
Chris, that is such an unfair question. Out of all the examples you could give, you're using Bill Nye, who's the coolest nerd on the planet. Of course, I would let somebody watch 30 minutes of Bill Nye, but not anybody else. So come on, that example doesn't work.
Got it.
And are we talking one day of Bill Nye? Or are we talking,
one day is
every
enough
day?
For a while.
Well, that's the thing, right? Because let's say that you have 10 episodes of Bill Nye. Would it be okay to watch one episode a day for 2 weeks? Right?
No.
Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
No, but if the Bill Nye episode is, say, about meteorological phenomena, weather, so then we're obsessed that maybe ideally this is coming up from the kids themselves. We're obsessed with weather right now, this group of kids and me. So we use the Bill Nye episode while we're obsessed about weather, but we don't bring in the other 9 Bill Nye episodes, as wonderful as Bill Nye is.
Well, I have
for another time.
I have some providers that one of them has Fun Day Friday. And so technology, all of those devices aren't allowed unless Friday. And then they have like a window of time that they're incorporated into free play. But the materials are still available, right? So it's like all the materials, all the learning centers, everything's still available. But now you have this is like a special treat for Friday afternoon kind of thing. But again, the adults are still there. They're still monitoring like what they're doing on the technology. So it's not just a free for all. And then another provider, they have kind of what you were saying, Adrian, they have like that extension once a week. And so in their lesson plans, they have a technology extension. And so if they're learning about giraffes, maybe on Wednesday, they go to like the zoo and they watch the zoo cameras when they have like the live birth, those type of videos. And so they're like, let's, so it's like every Wednesday, they're like, let's go check and see if the giraffe had her baby yet. And it's like, look, she's now 2 days old. And then but it's like, they're very intentional about putting on their lesson plan, like a technology extension, and it has a purpose and a place. Mm-hmm. So they know, okay, once a week, we'll go ahead and watch this zoo cam, or we'll go ahead and do this special, like, I think they had a special like Zoom meeting with some Iditarod racers. I mean, some really cool stuff, but it was intentional. It was linked to the theme or the lessons, and it's once a week. So then the children get extra excited because they see technology, they see devices everywhere. And so now they're like, ooh, a tablet, I know what that is. Ooh, a YouTube, I extra know what that is. And because it's so infrequently, all the children are just so engaged by it because the newness hasn't worn off.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting though with COVID and with our school, especially our school age kids, but even preschoolers have been, for a year now and some more have been doing distance learning on tablets, phones, computers. And it's a different set of expectations. It's that learning, but it is that, it's the longer period of time and they're sitting, and some teachers have been really great about doing like field trips with their kids, like taking their kids on a virtual field trip or getting up and being active with their kids or doing like yoga or something. But that's definitely changed the dynamic. And I think it's changed. I don't want to say a permanent change, but it's something that we've got to think about is what that impact has been over the long haul.
The loss of skills. So my youngest is a first grader, and they went back to in-person in March. Yeah, so in March, and she's a first grade teacher. So these kids went into COVID toward the end of kindergarten, and then, so a lot of the formative time, and they were all doing their assignments online. Well, most of them were probably just using their fingers to circle or write. She said there's a huge handwriting deficit. And so so she said, even these children who are able to read and they're able to answer the questions correctly when they can use the one finger touch and write, CAT cat, and it's, legible. But when you ask them to pincer grasp a pencil or marker and write CAT cat, the handwriting is very different. And a lot of times she was saying it's ineligible. So she's like, so she sent home a bunch of handwriting packets, and she was like, hey, these aren't like homework, don't stress out, but like we'd really like our kids to really have handwriting practice and focus. So me being the parent I am, I emailed her and said, tell me the why. Like, I don't mind doing it. I'm just like, what is this? And that we had a really nice dialogue about how we've lost some of those skill sets because we had to do education differently, because people weren't picking up pencils and writing it on paper. They were one finger doing it. We're behind. We're behind in handwriting, which is kind of an odd thing to be behind in. But when you think about it, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Viv.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, you guys talking about the doing schooling in a virtual way, and I was thinking about the providers who have several different children on different age groups or different classrooms or different teachers, and then trying to keep up with each child is such a huge burden, and a frustrating burden from what I hear at times from the providers. This virtual learning is it has been great in a way to keep children connected, but definitely really hindered the ability of a provider trying to keep up with each individual child's needs. And I was also thinking about the children when they're in class, preschoolers, and using devices, and thinking about, actually this one picture is in my mind of this teacher with 4 children on 4 different iPads, and she's monitoring them and just kind of just glancing at them. And I just keep thinking of that visual in my mind, thinking that interaction piece, even when there's only one child on one iPad or one computer, whatever. And, how do we know that what the child is actually engaged in is really connecting on what the teacher had maybe in mind, or maybe a theme that has been going on, or maybe a topic that has been talked about in the classroom? How do we know what that child's thinking without that connection and out that conversation? And making sure that's happening with them. So it's a real dilemma to watch children just kind of playing. I don't want to say playing because it is all work in a way, but it's just a way that staying connected with the real world of more than 1D, let's say 3D, or how about the real world of play, and making sure there's enough time for that instead of getting lost on a computer. Sorry, I've got you don't always have good things about computers all the time.
Yeah, there's skill loss. I mean, you talked about, Maria, about handwriting, but I think about also kids have lost that sense of just being, I don't want to say bored, but that not always entertained and having their mind on. And it's frustrating for young kids. It's actually like they don't know how to cope without having, a technology like a phone, and I've seen it. Yeah. And I've, or, oh my God, YouTube videos and kids, I have seen meltdowns. And I remember, growing up, and yes, that was way long time ago and things have changed, but, the big thing was go outside and play, go outside. And I couldn't wait to go outside and play. And it is hard to get kids to let go of electronics, to just go outside and play. Or, it's like, well, can I take it with me? No, go run. And that, Chris, I think you mentioned, I think it was you talked about, eating, mindlessly eating French fries, and, that research on obesity and what does that do? Because it is just mindless. And I've recognized that myself. You don't even realize you're just there.